Isabel Oakeshott, a prominent British journalist known for her sharp critiques and political commentary, has turned her attention to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in a blistering public dismantling of his tenure. Her dissection of Starmer's leadership highlights critical questions about his effectiveness, the direction of his policies, and his ability to command the confidence of the nation. The moment marked a defining critique, one that both encapsulated the frustrations of Starmer's opponents and potentially energized his detractors at a time when the Labour Party faces a pivotal crossroads. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Oakeshott's critique centered on Starmer's perceived inability to clearly define his leadership in a political environment that demands decisiveness and boldness. Starmer, a former barrister with a reputation for meticulousness, rose to prominence as a counterweight to the tumultuous leadership of his predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn. Yet, as Oakeshott pointed out, his tenure has often been mired in ambiguity. Critics have accused him of avoiding confrontation on key issues, a strategy that has left him vulnerable to accusations of indecision and inconsistency. Oakeshott did not shy away from underscoring these points, framing Starmer as a leader more concerned with managing perceptions than tackling the substantive challenges facing the UK. One of the central themes of Oakeshott's attack was Starmer's handling of domestic policy. The UK has faced a plethora of challenges during his time in office, ranging from economic instability to the ongoing repercussions of Brexit and the public services crisis. According to Oakeshott, Starmer has failed to articulate a vision that speaks to these pressing issues. She argued that his approach has been overly cautious, more reactive than proactive, and that this hesitancy has eroded public trust in his ability to lead effectively. Her critique tapped into a broader sense of unease among voters who feel that despite his measured rhetoric, Starmer has struggled to convey a coherent strategy for addressing the deep-rooted structural issues confronting the country. Economic policy featured heavily in Oakeshott's critique. With the UK grappling with inflation, stagnating wages, and a cost-of-living crisis, the public has demanded bold solutions. Oakeshott portrayed Starmer as a leader caught between the competing demands of progressive voters and the pragmatic realities of governance. His policies, she suggested, have often lacked the clarity and conviction needed to reassure either side. This balancing act, while intended to broaden Labour's appeal, has at times made Starmer appear uncommitted or inconsistent, particularly on high-stakes issues such as taxation, welfare reform, and industrial strategy. Another area where Oakeshott's criticism struck a chord was Starmer's approach to foreign policy. As Prime Minister, his leadership on the international stage has been scrutinized for its lack of assertiveness, particularly in a post-Brexit world where the UK's global standing is undergoing significant redefinition. Oakeshott accused him of failing to seize opportunities to carve out a distinct role for Britain in international affairs, arguing that his cautious diplomacy has done little to strengthen the country's position. Whether it be relations with the European Union, trade negotiations, or the UK's response to global crises, Oakeshott framed Starmer's record as one of missed opportunities and unfulfilled promises. Oakeshott also highlighted the Prime Minister's challenges in managing his own party. Labour, historically a coalition of diverse factions, has always been prone to internal tensions, and Starmer's leadership has been no exception. While he initially succeeded in distancing the party from the Corbyn-era controversies that alienated many centrist voters, Oakeshott argued that he has struggled to foster unity or energize the grassroots base. She described Starmer's attempts to position Labour as a more moderate alternative to the Conservatives as a strategy that has alienated the party's left-wing supporters while failing to fully convince the broader electorate of his vision. One particularly scathing element of Oakeshott's analysis was her focus on Starmer's communication style. While he has often been praised for his forensic approach in Parliament, Oakeshott suggested that this has not translated into an ability to inspire or connect with the public. She painted a picture of a leader whose careful, lawyerly demeanor can come across as overly technical and detached, particularly in moments that demand empathy or passion. For a prime minister tasked with leading the country through uncertain times, this perceived lack of emotional resonance has been a significant handicap. In her critique, Oakeshott also turned her attention to Starmer's management of the NHS crisis, an issue that has dominated public discourse and continues to weigh heavily on the nation. The healthcare system, strained by years of underfunding and workforce shortages, has become a litmus test for political leadership. Oakeshott argued that Starmer's proposals to address the crisis have been too incremental, failing to address the root causes of systemic dysfunction. For many, the NHS represents a cornerstone of British identity, and Oakeshott's claim that Starmer has not done enough to safeguard its future will likely resonate with a public increasingly frustrated by long wait times and diminishing quality of care. Education and housing were additional flashpoints in Oakeshott's critique. She lambasted Starmer for what she characterized as a lack of urgency in tackling the challenges faced by young people. From skyrocketing rents to inadequate access to affordable housing, she argued that the government's response under his leadership has been tepid at best. Similarly, she questioned his commitment to reforming the education system, pointing to disparities in funding and access as evidence of a broader failure to prioritize long-term investment in the country's future. Perhaps the most cutting aspect of Oakeshott's takedown was her suggestion that Starmer's leadership has been defined more by a desire to avoid controversy than to achieve meaningful change. She portrayed him as a leader whose cautious pragmatism has too often veered into political timidity, leaving him vulnerable to accusations of being out of touch with the realities faced by ordinary Britons. By framing Starmer as a figure unwilling to take risks or challenge the status quo, Oakeshott's critique not only targeted his record, but also questioned his suitability for the role of Prime Minister. The implications of Oakeshott's critique extend far beyond the immediate political landscape. By highlighting what she sees as Starmer's weaknesses, Oakeshott has opened the door for further scrutiny from both political opponents and members of his own party. Her analysis underscores the precarious position Starmer occupies as he attempts to navigate a deeply divided electorate, an emboldened conservative opposition, and the lingering effects of a fractured Labour Party. In many ways, Oakeshott's dissection of his leadership is emblematic of a broader disillusionment with centrist politics in the UK, a sentiment that could have far-reaching consequences for the future of British democracy. Oakeshott's critique also raises important questions about the nature of leadership in a complex, rapidly changing world. Her portrayal of Starmer as a leader more focused on avoiding missteps than embracing bold initiatives taps into a broader debate about what the public expects from its leaders. In an era defined by crises, from climate change to economic uncertainty, the demand for visionary leadership has never been greater. Whether or not Starmer can rise to the occasion remains to be seen, but Oakeshott's analysis serves as a stark reminder of the challenges he faces in convincing voters that he is the right person for the job. Isabel Oakeshott's sharp critique of Prime Minister Keir Starmer has struck a nerve not just within political circles, but also among voters grappling with the complex realities of modern Britain. Her detailed dismantling of his tenure provided new fodder for ongoing debates about his leadership, raising pointed questions about his preparedness for the challenges ahead. This critique, however, did more than just highlight perceived failings. It revealed deeper fault lines within the political landscape and offered a moment of reckoning for Starmer and his administration. To truly grasp the magnitude of her remarks, it's essential to delve further into the dimensions of leadership, public perception, and the expectations of modern governance that Oakeshott laid bare. One of the most telling aspects of Oakeshott's critique was her ability to articulate the growing discontent within Starmer's own base. This unease has been simmering for some time, particularly among those who feel that Starmer has yet to live up to the promises he made when taking the reins of the Labour Party. His ascent to the role of Prime Minister came with the hope that he would provide a steady hand and a fresh vision after years of political turbulence. Yet, as Oakeshott argued, many within his core constituency are beginning to question whether he possesses the dynamism required to tackle the profound structural challenges facing the country. This sense of dissatisfaction has been compounded by what critics see as his reluctance to commit to bold reform or take a definitive stance on divisive issues. One of the key factors shaping this perception is the broader political context in which Starmer operates. Following a period of conservative dominance marked by dramatic shifts such as Brexit and the pandemic, the expectations placed on Starmer have been unusually high. Many voters hoped he would usher in a new era of stability and competence, a stark contrast to the perceived chaos of previous years. However, Oakeshott's critique illuminated a growing frustration that his leadership has not lived up to this promise. The cautious pragmatism that once seemed like an asset has, in her view, morphed into a liability, creating a vacuum where bold and visionary leadership was expected. Moreover, Oakeshott's focus on Starmer's inability to connect with the electorate underscored a significant challenge for modern political leaders: the balance between expertise and relatability. Starmer's credentials as a former barrister and head of the Crown Prosecution Service were central to his appeal during his rise to prominence. Yet, as Oakeshott pointed out, these qualities have not always translated into an ability to engage with the public on a visceral level. In an age where authenticity and emotional connection often carry as much weight as policy expertise, Starmer's reserved demeanor can sometimes appear at odds with the demands of contemporary leadership. This perceived disconnect has broader implications for the Labour Party's ability to maintain and grow its coalition of support. Historically, Labour has drawn its strength from a diverse base that includes working-class voters, progressive urbanites, and intellectuals. Under Starmer's leadership, the party has attempted to rebrand itself as a moderate alternative to the Conservatives, distancing itself from the more radical policies of the Corbyn era. However, Oakeshott's critique suggested that this rebranding effort has come at a cost. By focusing on appealing to centrist voters, Labour risks alienating its traditional base, many of whom feel that Starmer has failed to prioritize their concerns. This delicate balancing act has made it difficult for the party to present a unified front, leaving it vulnerable to internal divisions and external criticism. One area where these tensions are particularly evident is in Labour's approach to climate change and environmental policy. As one of the defining issues of our time, climate change demands bold and innovative solutions. Yet Oakeshott accused Starmer of failing to seize the initiative, framing his proposals as insufficiently ambitious. This critique touches on a broader tension within Labour's platform: the challenge of reconciling the need for transformative change with the constraints of political feasibility. While Starmer's cautious approach may reflect a desire to avoid alienating key voter blocs, it has also left him open to accusations of timidity and a lack of vision. Oakeshott's analysis also raised important questions about the role of ideology in contemporary politics. Starmer's tenure has been marked by an effort to position Labour as a pragmatic, solutions-oriented party, focused on addressing real-world problems rather than engaging in ideological battles. While this approach has helped to restore Labour's credibility among some segments of the electorate, it has also led to criticisms that the party lacks a clear identity or guiding philosophy. Oakeshott's portrayal of Starmer as a leader adrift in a sea of competing priorities taps into this broader narrative, highlighting the challenges of navigating a political landscape increasingly defined by polarization and fragmentation. Another dimension of Oakeshott's critique that warrants closer examination is her assessment of Starmer's leadership style. As Prime Minister, his approach has often been described as methodical and deliberate, qualities that served him well during his legal career. However, Oakeshott argued that these traits have not always translated into effective political leadership, particularly in moments of crisis. Her critique suggested that Starmer's reliance on careful planning and consensus building can sometimes come at the expense of decisiveness and agility, leaving him vulnerable to being outmaneuvered by more dynamic opponents. This perception is particularly relevant in the context of Starmer's interactions with the media and public opinion. In an era where political narratives are shaped as much by social media and soundbites as by policy proposals, the ability to command attention and shape the conversation is a critical component of effective leadership. Oakeshott's critique suggested that Starmer has struggled to adapt to this reality, often appearing reactive rather than proactive in his communications strategy. This has allowed his critics to dominate the narrative, framing his leadership in ways that undermine his credibility and erode public confidence. The implications of Oakeshott's critique extend beyond the immediate political moment, offering a lens through which to examine the broader challenges facing political leaders in the 21st century. Her analysis highlights the growing tension between the demands of governance and the expectations of an increasingly fragmented electorate. For Starmer, the task of navigating these dynamics is made all the more challenging by the unique pressures of leading the Labour Party, an institution with a long and storied history that often serves as both an asset and a constraint. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Isabel Oakeshott's criticism of Keir Starmer's time in office? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.